Let's take a look at the sequencer. It's this area down the bottom, and we can toggle the viewing of it by clicking on the sequencer button in the top left. So we can pop it up from the bottom there. This is where all of our drum pad trigger information lives over time, so it's where we construct a loop or construct a beat. We have 16 rows, and these correspond to the 16 pads on the left. You'll see as I hover over a row, it will show us what drum pad it is attached to, and as I hover over the drum pads, it will show us what row it's attached to. So here's our kick, it's on row number 1, snare, which is on row number 2. We can click to add a trigger, so I'm going to click here in the bottom left to add a kick on the first beat. Let's add another kick here. We'll put a snare here and a snare here. Now I'm going to click on play, which is above the sequencer. And we have a drum loop going. Let's add in some closed hats. I can click and drag to add hats. If I click and drag but I go outside of the row, it's still going to add them to just that row. I can click to remove triggers, and I can also click and drag to remove triggers, but let's just fill that up for now. Up here in the transport we have pause. When I click play again, it's going to continue playing from where I paused it. However, if I click stop, it's always going to play from the start of the loop. I'll cover record near the end of the video. We have BPM or tempo, this is how fast it plays. We can go slow or super fast. If you're using Atlas as a plugin in your DAW, this will be attached to the tempo of your project. We also have a tap, so I can tap on this BPM and Atlas is going to figure out what speed to play based on the speed that I'm tapping. This is good if you're trying to get it to sync with something. You can just listen to it and tap along. We also have an on and off switch. This will stop all the trigger information from reaching the drum pads. It won't delete it, but it will just stop it from playing. We also have a close, so this will just close down the sequencer. We can always open it with the toggle up the top left here. And we have a transport here as well, a play and a stop. Let's take a look at some of the tools for adding notes. We have mirror edit. This will add additional notes based on the increment that we select. So if I choose 1, it's going to add 1 every beat. Let's click on the shaker and you'll see every beat it's added 1. If I go 2 and click on this other, it's going to add it after 2 beats. So 1, 2, let's put 1 here. If I choose 4, it's not going to do anything because the length of our loop is too short. It's already 4 beats long. So let's change it from this drop down to 8 beats long, and now we can add in a note here. Let's hit play. Let's bring the BPM back up. We also have the step size, so we can change how short or how fast a step is. I'm going to choose 30-second notes. The reason it's 16 is because that means there's 16 individual triggers within 1 bar. Let me go back to just 4 beats or 1 bar to show you. So there's 16 notes here and we're working in 16th note step size. But if I change this to 32, we get double the size. So let's go and add some of these fast notes at the end of this hat loop. We also have triplets, so I'm going to just delete everything by clicking on the trash icon here. I'm going to choose 16th triplets and let's put in a different beat. You can hear we now have a triplet beat. It's more kind of swung and more groovy. Let's delete that and go back to 16th notes. I'll put in a 4/4 loop. We'll put some open hats on the offbeat. And let's bring the tempo down a bit. We have a rotate all, so we can click on this to nudge all of the notes to the right or all of the notes to the left. We have a shuffle, which will introduce a swing or a groove to the whole sequence. So let me put in some hats. Now as I bring the shuffle up, you can hear it swinging the beat, so it's a little bit more groovy. We have a new sequence area. This will add a new sequence to the sequencer, and we can choose where that comes from. So we have from browser, random chaos, or variation. Let's do some from the browser. It's going to grab them from sequences that's found within our browser over here. Let's bring the BPM up a bit. We can also go random chaos just to get complete randomness. This is good if you want to do some very experimental things. And we can choose variation. So if I find a nice sequence here and I go variation, it's just going to adjust things slightly. So this is really good for quickly finding new ideas. Let's talk about the per channel options. I'm going to put down a simple beat just like before, kick and snares, put in some claps as well, and some closed hats. But I'm going to click on the closed hat's name over here on the left, and you'll see it will expand out and give us a few more options. So this trigger area is now a value or the velocity, which is attached to the volume. So I can change these and get some volume on a per note basis. It adds a bit of humanization to things. We have a mute and a solo. This is attached to the sample panel, so I can turn it off up here and on. We have a nudge, so this will nudge all of the timing of this particular channel to the right or to the left. If you find things aren't really sitting well rhythmically in your mix, you can use this to kind of catch up or lag them behind. We have a cut, copy and paste, so I can cut all of these and I can go to my shaker channel and I can paste them. We have a new channel. This will generate a bunch of new notes based on things from the browser, random chaos, or variation. So let's go random chaos. You can see we get random patterns each time, including velocity. We can choose it from the browser. And we can go variation. We can close this panel down by clicking on this arrow here. Over on the right, we have the polyrhythm length. This defines the loop length for just that track within the sequence. So if I play this sequence, let's drag the polyrhythm length of the kick back to the left. We'll drag it to just one beat. And you can see the kick is now looping in a 1 beat loop with the rest all looping in 4 beats. Let's drag this one back. Let's go even further. Let's put some hats in. Up here in the top right of our sequencer panel, we have the export window. This allows us to export our loop as MIDI or audio. For MIDI, we have a few options. We can choose mixdown or stems. Mixdown is a single MIDI file with all of the audio tracks. Stems is separate individual MIDI files for each audio track. We can choose to render the shuffle, which is the value that we selected before that adds a bit of swing or groove to our loop, and we can actually choose what individual channels we want to export. So at the moment it's only selected ones that have trigger information. We can of course select other tracks, or we can turn ones off that we don't want. We can choose all of them, none of them, or just the audible ones, which is the ones that have trigger information. We of course have the audio export as well, which is almost the same. We have the mixdown and stems. If we want individual audio files for each audio track, make sure you pick stems. And we also have a normalize option, which will bring all of the audio levels up to the same level. We can also choose to render it with a lead-in or with a tail. So if your loop finishes but a sample continues to play some audio, you can turn this on and it will render it out with the tail. But if you want to render a perfect loop, make sure you just have this one selected. Once you're done, click on render, and then you can drag the file anywhere onto your computer or into your DAW, or you can click on open and it will show you where it is on your computer. Let's record some notes into the sequencer using an external device, in this case an Ovation Launchpad Pro. First thing I'm going to do is make sure it's set up correctly. I'm going to go into my options, choose Audio MIDI settings, and look down in the active MIDI inputs. Here I can see my Launchpad Pro Mark III. I'm going to make sure this box is ticked, close this down, and now these pads should correspond to the drum pads within Atlas. Great. I'm going to start the sequence playing, and I'm going to put down a very basic hi-hat loop just so I have a metronome that can help me. Now I'm going to click record to ARM, and anything I play here is going to be put into the sequencer. Simple as that. It's worth noting that this also records the velocity. If I was to clear this all, and let's change the steps to 32 to get really fast increments, I'm going to go record and play, and I'm going to try and hit the notes as fast as I can. You can see that it's retained the velocity information. I will be doing another video shortly that will explore more in depth how to do things with MIDI such as exporting, importing, and using Atlas properly with inside a DAW.